Grooming gangs. Grooming gangs. Two words. Two words that we, as adults, should be frightened of, should be angry about, should be really aggressively pursuing those people involved in the grooming gangs. It should be something that you'd expect the police to be jumping on straight away, social services and councils, to be able to work every single day to annihilate and remove the grooming gangs.
I'm far too long in the tooth to think that, though.
Yeah. And I think about it as terms of our natural history as a country, that within us we should be capable of saying grooming gangs is not acceptable. But, as we see on this in terms of Katie Lamb, most grooming gangs, very clearly white, very clearly working class, very clearly mainly northern cities, although they are spread across it. But grooming gangs there we know existed, and it's been there for a long time.
Thing is, we know that this data is highly faulty.
Mm-hmm.
As in, so it was something like 40% of them, they don't record the ethnicity.
No.
It's like, why would you not do that?
And I think that's particularly an image that when we look at it, and when I look at it, I still think about those men, how many of them there are, how evil they are.
We can literally look at the people who are arrested
and
actually charged and be like, right, okay, so most of them are Pakistanis.
These are the ones who were caught. This is the evil that sits around us, stands around us, passes us on the streets. And therefore, once again, why are we not seemingly having a country that is just up in arms, chasing down every one of these, looking after them?
Well, one quick thing to say is that they'll only be the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely.
They're the ones that the CPS can get a prosecution against.
Yep.
There'll be 10, 100 times more men involved.
Mm-hmm. And we estimate 250,000 girls over the past 20 years. We look at over 50 towns in which these have been crimes committed by these types of people. But instead of what we're feeling morally angry about and morally unacceptable, and we feel that we should be saying right from the start something should have been done and why wasn't it, we have a Prime Minister that when it was raised early on in this year simply turned around and denied it. Denied that there should be an opportunity to pursue these properly through a national grooming gang inquiry, despite the fact that everybody had been calling for it prior to that. The work had been done. People like Tommy Robinson, who'd come out in the early days, have identified this in Luton, in his local area, spread it across the country, talking about different areas, and we've known through victims themselves coming through, but no.
And of course, a
Maggie
national
Oliver
inquiry Professor Jay carried out for 7 years had 20 recommendations, none of which actually were implemented by the party opposite when they were in government. Now, this is a really serious issue. We must focus, obviously, on the victims and survivors. There's no fixed view on the victims and survivors about a further national inquiry. There are mixed views. But there is a view, and I share this view, that what is needed now is action on what we already know. We already know, myself from personal knowledge when I was Chief Prosecutor.
I'm going to stop that when he talked about Chief Prosecutor.
Yeah.
The Chief Prosecutor that ignored most of the offences that went out there. A Chief Prosecutor, only one individual to pursue a few of them whilst he was there. And what I look on this when he tries to, first of all, say, we've already had inquiries. They weren't, and I've looked at those inquiries, I looked at the Casey reports. Not one of those inquiries dealt specifically with a national recommendation to deal with Pakistani grooming gangs. It talked in generalities about crime. It didn't specifically deal with the cases of these individuals. And it certainly didn't look at the way that people have been ignored and those people complicit with the cases, whether it was the civil servants, the probation, the police, the councillors. It ignored all of them. And I look at the nodding dogs in this, their heads nodding away like pathetic little children in the middle of a playing field. And one of them, who supposedly says that I protect women, look after women, turning around saying zero about the inquiries. But it's very clear here, we have a Prime Minister only in January turns around and says, I'm not interested and we're not going to deal with it. Is it to do with the fact of the nationality of the people in the picture we saw before? Or are we being generous saying, no, he feels that it's nothing to deal with at the moment? After all, he said, in his words there, that those victims didn't really want another.
So there are a few just glaring obvious points here. The first being, we know what the nationality of the grooming gangs is. I mean, that's not been a secret for a long time. But you can see why the Prime Minister of the Labour Party were like, we don't need any further inquiries. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the further inquiries will reveal the complicity and the linkage between the Labour Party and the gangs themselves. That's the issue.
Sorry.
It will just show that you guys are culpable.
Someone like Maggie Oliver has done sterling work over the years on this stuff. And, most people like us say we want to see actual people brought to account. We want individual dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of individual policemen, counsellors, people even at the CPS.
Social services
to be brought, least of all the actual criminals, the actual men, all of them brought to account. A true bringing it out into the light of day, truly for real.
Because there are a bunch of them where, it would be a 10-year-old girl who's being groomed. They'd be like, okay, she's a prostitute. No, she's not. She's a victim. There's no such thing as a 10-year-old prostitute.
Absolutely, and that's why I say those two words are a national scandal, and those two words are a historic national scandal, and those two words are the things that drive us. Primarily you on the show before I arrived, and many other your presenters have pushed this as an agenda along with others like Maggie Oliver, that it should never leave the public consciousness because of the vile aspects of it and the reason that we are who we are, which is wanting to have a just solution to this, a just cause for these people.
In recent times, even Elon and Rupert Lowe sort of insisting that it's.
I'm going to come through bits of that.
One other quick thing I'll say is, you may well know more about this than me, being a Manchester man, but there were a few, very, very small number of, I think, senior Manchester police that were sort of essentially forced to retire early. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's the only real justice that has been seen, and it's just not good enough, is it?
It's not. And what's good enough is obviously we see the Prime Minister there saying, "I don't want it. I don't
this
need
is back
it."
in January.
In January, and then I thought I also had the there we are, and then this vile human being who, and I say this, with a few words.
Accepts Powell's apology. Do you think it was vacuous?
Powell, who turned around and said it was a dog whistle.
I think if I had said,
pause it if you want to talk, because people can't hear you. Talk.
So in this particular instant, we remember Lucy Powell, an MP, turning around and saying it's a dog whistle if you raise the issue of it.
Keir Starmer said it was a far right bandwagon.
Prime Minister turning around and saying it's a far right aspect about it, and I think we come in this. So we have this, and then all of a sudden, just over the weekend, we have the Prime Minister now announcing a national inquiry into grooming gangs. And I'm happy for that.
Well, yeah.
I'm delighted, finally.
He had to be pressured into it.
Yep.
That was the way that The Guardian framed it. Keir Starmer caves to the pressure. It's like, okay, but where was the pressure coming from? It wasn't from Nigel Farage and Reform.
No.
It was coming from Rupert Lowe. And the fact that he raised £600,000 and is currently conducting his own non-statutory national inquiry into it. Yep. And apparently hundreds of victims have come forward. Loads of stuff has come out already that they've got that they're going to release. And so, you can see where he's like, well, okay, I've been dragged into this by just one random backbench MP who's just not prepared to let the issue go.
Yeah, this is a Prime Minister that has tried to hide everything so far. When it comes to charging people and removing the benefits for old age pensioners, for heating allowance, he's been made to do a U-turn on that, and many different U-turns. But not only that, he goes a little bit further than just announcing a grooming gang. He goes one step. Now we're going to have a new police operation to target the grooming gangs nationwide. Well, I already thought we had one of those. I thought when he talked about his speeches and he gave those speeches, he already said we're already targeting it. Didn't we already say we need action? We're taking action. So why is it now that we have this new police force led by the National Crime Agency? Isn't that their job in the first instance? Isn't their job to analyse what are the biggest crimes that we've got in this country? And I would have put grooming gangs at the top, obviously, and I would have put that above drug dealing, to be honest.
Yeah, way above.
It's got to be way above it.
Drug dealing's bad, but it's not like this.
Yeah, raping young girls is worse than actually someone snorting cocaine.
Yes.
I want to deal with them both. I want it all out of the way. I want to deal with that because it leads to murder and aiding and abetting deaths in other countries.
Sure, but one's way worse
this
than the other.
is way serious. So why is it only now?
And it's not just rape, it's often gang rape or even torture and
Pimping.
stuff.
Yep.
But you absolutely raised a good point. Why this extra level of policing now? Oh yeah, I thought we haven't had a national inquiry before, but there have been other sort of investigations and inquiries internally, and I thought they came to the conclusion that we've sorted it all out now and we've got our house in order now and it won't happen again. We were told that, weren't we, a number of times?
Absolutely. And I think it's coming down to some of the things we've already touched upon. First of all, it might be better if I use the right button thing. It's a little bit
It's a lot easier. I don't
a
know.
lot easier to do that if it's next, isn't it, on there? Oh, maybe not. I don't know which is the next one. There we go. So we start, obviously, this. I think, when we play this, I'm going to let people hear it, obviously. They've heard it. This was Tucker Carlson, October 7th, last year. This was before the rejection.
In Britain, I kid you not, how can this be real? They are releasing convicted pedophiles from prison in order to put people in prison for Facebook posts. There were, and this is I'm simply stating a fact, there were migrant rape gangs in England that would run around and prey on young girls, gang rape them, and some people found that objectionable.
Yeah, people found that objectionable. But it takes an American citizen, a South African with a lot of money, to actually suddenly concern the elites in this country.
It was more the size of his platform.
Yeah.
The fact that 200 million people were suddenly seeing Elon going on a rampage on New Year's Day about rape gangs in England. It must have been an absolute nightmare for the Labour Party.
And not only that, it opened up the doors for American people like Don Keith, the real Don Keith, and others. Then all across we saw them. Big speakers in America, right up to Trump himself, talking about this particular issue. So the pressure had been done for years from the likes of Tommy Robinson and others, but also the women themselves. And then I remember this particular one. Starmer was complicit with the rape of Britain when he was head of the Crown prosecution. This caused a massive storm within the Labour Party. But now we've got this political pressure that's being applied on the government, on the civil service, for something that they've ignored by a man with a platform, power, and influence in the United States. And if you remember rightly, they were saying, this could have a real impact on Mandelson as the ambassador. And I think that was one of the big pushing points. And then the women continued. The women didn't give up. And we should be honouring these people. If there's anyone that should be getting knighthoods, anyone getting MBEs, anyone getting OBEs, anyone should be lauded, it is people like this who went out and carried on raging. I don't know whether we should...
Can we watch it?
Yeah, no, this
I
one...
haven't seen this.
How can you sit there and deny everything you've done? How can you do it? You can't even look me in the face. Can you? Look at all the hurt you've done to us girls. All the hurt. Just think we've got to live with that with our families. You've done nothing to support us, nothing to support. I've had to go to my own. And that was last week. I've had to live with this for 12 bloody years. And what have you done? You've still got your job. You should stand down. Stand down.
Absolutely. So all across the country, whether it's new organisations like the Women's Safety UK or those you talked about, Maggie Oliver, but it's these women who have been fighting on their own, really, with no mass organisation to help them until only the past couple of years, that had to go to council meetings like that and rage to the people who were in their jobs who didn't do their jobs. I'd like to see the picture of those individuals, because instead of having an image of all those Pakistanis who committed the crime, we should be also having images of all those people who did nothing.
All the councillors, all the police inspectors and overseers, whatever they call them. So all of the entire edifice of it is just disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
And I would like to see a billboard in the centre of any town with all their faces on. I quite frankly don't care about GDPR. I don't care about their lives. These people ignored women like that, but they carried on fighting. Elon Musk may have had the power, but without their groundwork carrying on, and these people here, I won't play this. This is in February. a Million Women March rally across the country demanding a national, women having to come out, to say we're women, we've been abused, we've been raped.
It's literally the victims that were suppressed by the institutions. Like the grooming gangs themselves were allowed to just victimize them for years, and now there's just so many of them. They're like, look, we demand justice.
It's like a plague. There is literally a plague on these children all across the country and the women across the country. And we've gone back and we've seen what our politicians have done, and it's taken their continued hard work, and we must never take that away from them. As I say, I think every one of them should be honoured for what they're doing.
What a remarkable thing it is that Sir Keir Starmer, His Majesty's Prime Minister, was head of the CPS at that time. Yeah. That's crazy. It's not like he was some rural MP that didn't have any grooming on his patch. It wasn't that. No, he was head of the CPS. Madness, the Crown Prosecution Service.
I mean, he could have had a national inquiry at that time.
It was his
using
job.
His office.
To prosecute those people.
Yeah.
It's like when you get an ex-Home Secretary saying, I couldn't do anything about the boat people. It's like, no, you could have done.
Yes, pretty.
Could have done.
Well, my understanding of it is the head of the CPS and the DPP, you have a responsibility to be able to discuss with chief constables across the country what are their priorities in terms of offences and cases, and how are we going to deal with those priorities in getting the natural resources to be able to handle any offences. So for me, it strikes me as unusual, at the very least, to suggest that there wasn't that capability and knowledge that all these offences in 50 towns were going on, and therefore there needed to be some cohesive kind of programme in place to support the police in terms of charging and going
through this. It's more the lack of interest, isn't it? And
that's what I think it was. I think it was other resources, other issues were far more important to them. And why is it far more important to them?
All through the Blair years, these women were just derided.
Yep.
When they were girls, they were derided as just being low quality, low class. They were the ones causing trouble. They were prostitutes. They
were just promiscuous.
They were promiscuous. They were drug addicts. They deserve it. And there was a particular line that I can't remember who it was in the Labour Party. They've chosen this lifestyle is the term that was used, and it's like.
And wasn't there another Labour MP that said they should shut up?
Oh, that was Naz Shah. Yeah, shut up for the sake of diversity.
Yeah.
But this is why I'm all the more patriarchal than I used to be. No, children don't choose like that. 10-year-olds don't choose. And even if they could choose, they shouldn't choose. So anyway.
And even if they could choose, it's our responsibility as adults to take them and remove them from that danger, because that's what we do as adults. That's what we do as a caring society. And so we should continue to remain angry. But then, of course, you've talked about it, the rape gang inquiry from Rupert Lowe, initial evidence submission. And you're quite right to have pointed this out. Already, there are really important elements to this about that inquiry by Rupert Lowe. Yeah. So you've got the pressure from Elon Musk and the Americans. You have the girls and the women who've been campaigning for a long time persistent. And then we have the Rupert Lowe issue, and I think here with Sammy Woodhouse, who we know herself, a victim, has gone out travelling the country as part of the work of the rape gang inquiry and gathering that evidence, Carl, that you've talked about, very clearly to keep the pressure out. And it's been released.
Yeah.
Slowly and surely, we're seeing more of this. And the fact out there that governments were still trying to ignore it. But I think these kind of amounts to the levels of drip pressure that are coming into this. But there's a little bit more to it, I think, now. The grooming inquiry come here is that this is one of the quotes that are coming out. Baroness Casey, when she first got the job from Keir Starmer, says here, was not really that interested in having another inquiry. She basically was saying, I don't think there is a need to do, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to look at it. I think so far everything that I've seen doesn't lead me to view that was the case. And indeed, there was I think it's the Minister for Education who's been put out today, across the ways, is saying exactly that. Baroness Casey did not think there was a need for a new inquiry at the time, but now...
Well, this is sort of the problem. This is my reservation about the whole thing. Of course I want justice.
Yeah.
Of course. There's a problem, though, with this type of national inquiry. Yeah. I mean, to the point where it is cliche in the 70s or 80s that yes, Minister or yes, Prime Minister will talk about it, is that what they do is they pick the right person to head the inquiry, like picking the right judge, You pick the right person, and at the end of it all, they come to conclusions that are in the interest of the establishment, that are in the interest of still not getting any justice. And then they can say, you've had your national inquiry, all the investigation's been done, there's literally nothing more that can be done from a judicial point of view. Now go away and shut up forever.
And I think,
I fear, because, you know, like the various inquiries they had about the Iraq War or the COVID inquiry, which is pure whitewash, an exercise in whitewash. That's what I feel. I would like. I welcome a national inquiry. I want justice.
Yeah.
Will this deliver that?
I don't know, but I think
I fear it won't. I fear it will be once again an exercise in a whitewash.
And you have got one of the most incredibly strong points about that, appointing someone, because I take this and the previous clip. Baroness Casey, known for all the reviews that she's done, seen as a safe pair of hands, a classic civil servant, so far has done the job on a number of reviews, including, as you said, the Rotherham sexual exploitation cases. Her own review, which I said nothing really of any import, hence the reason why the Conservatives didn't implement anything. And there she was at the beginning saying, I don't want to have any inquiry. I don't think I'll need a national inquiry. So it's exactly the point. They've chosen that safe pair of hands, Bo, just as you said. I've got the right person. We all respect her, both sides. And if she doesn't do a job, then, okay, we can say she's looked at it properly. But, you know, Maggie Oliver goes out and says, I had 2 private meetings with Baroness Casey. Past 3 months, taken 10 survivors to meet her, share horrific experiences. She called me yesterday to update me. What has changed? What has taken the career safe hand? We're going to put her in place. And I think this is where I'm going to move towards, to show you that she's actually seen this. She's seen the women. She's now opened her eyes. She's one of those elite middle-class women who didn't think it existed, and it was all, as you said, Carl. These are just the poor scum of the earth, working-class white girls who brought it on themselves. Maybe she didn't genuinely, in the side, feel it, those were her words, but intrinsically, there's a kind of snobbery up there, isn't there?
Oh, 100%.
There's 100% snobbery. That's what they are.
This is a
they
massive
live down
class
in
issue.
that. Yeah, it's hugely class issue. And I think she may well have started to understand that this was a level of brutality that surpassed anything in our history. And, you know, we need to look at it.
Well, fingers crossed that's the case. Fingers crossed.
And I think there's another reason why Labour's suddenly changed. I think she might start to see there is a link between illegal migration with the violence perpetrated against the girls.
Okay, but there's a link between legal migration, which is much more important.
Yeah, but I think they're also linking two, which gives two... And I don't know about this, obviously. None of us have seen what she said. Yeah. I haven't seen the evidential criminality numbers about it that would link illegal migration. But if both of them are in there, the legal migrants that we've got and the illegal migrants, it now creates an enormous headache for the Labour Party, in a party that's saying we need to stop the boats, and they're going to just basically sign through hundreds of 30,000 people are going to get granted asylum so we can shove them out of hotels and put them into housing across the country. And I'm trying to move... 66% of Brits believe the officials involved should be jailed.
Yep.
Quite right. Absolutely, 100%. We want justice for them. And now we've also got the civil service. So I'm going to turn around and say, what are the reasons now that they're coming out? First of all, I think, Carl, Bo, exactly what they said is that get the safe pair of hands, let's brush it aside. The safe pair of hands is now balked. There's something there that she's going to come out, and she's given the Prime Minister and her team saying, I'm going to have the national inquiry. Something needs to be done. Then we have people turning around saying we should be jailing all these civil servants. And then we have what Dominic Cummings said.
There was mass cover-ups of the whole thing for the same reason that we've already alluded to, fear. Fear of the political consequences of facing reality. What I saw in 2011, I mean, there are lots of different things. Well, normally in Whitehall, the cliche that it's a cock-up, not a conspiracy, is generally true. The one big exception, I would say, is regarding child abuse, where there are actually multiple conspiracies constantly and largely successful. I watched these happening repeatedly in the Department of Education because the issue was parked there by Gordon Brown and Ed Balls, so I had to deal with it when I was there. I would watch the redacted documents and the actual unredacted documents about lots of these cases, and you could see that the redacted documents are redacted entirely to hide the incompetence of the system. Now, what happened on the gangs is that when Andrew Norfolk at the time started to try to report the issue The council went to officials inside the Department of Education and said, we want to bring a judicial review to have the courts suppress the Times' reporting and not allow it to happen.
Right. Cummings in there. Some like him, some don't. I personally mixed views. I quite like him on some things, met him many times. On this issue, he's beginning to highlight not the cock-up theory, which we've all talked about, but a deliberate cover-up. First of all, in terms of the redacted and unredacted documents. Secondly, the talk about councils seeking judicial reviews to suppress the media's cases about it. And then he goes on, and because I didn't want to play it for too long, he then talks about how within the Department of Education and Government, they had one side, yes, let's suppress them, another side saying this is appalling. And what I think we've got to look at is not only as the safe pair of hands, first of all, said we're having the grooming gangs, and that 60% of the people believe people should be jailed. And here we have an individual within government saying there was definitely a conspiracy. The reason they're calling it is because they now need to get hold of the narrative.
Yeah.
They want to get there so that they can take control to start suppressing the ideas that these people should be imprisoned and start to decipher which individuals are going to be thrown to the dogs, which ones are going to be saved, and who can we find out as the sacrificial lambs. That's stage one of this inquiry.
Would have been nice if Dominic had done a bit more at the time when he was actually in power, wouldn't it? Would have been nice to be a bit more vocal at the time.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.